All right. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on which coast you are in the United States. My name is Joaquin Watai. I'm the author of the book PTSDog, Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder and the Service Dog. This is the last live we're going to do before I go for surgery first thing in the morning tomorrow. And by first thing in the morning, I mean I have to be there at 10 to 6 in the morning for the hospital. We got a couple of things to cover. Nevermore may be joining us here shortly. But I'm going to go ahead and get started because I do have a lot of stuff to cover before I start taking questions. Last week we talked about access, we talked about retail and a couple of other things, and I think it was a very productive session. Hopefully we can be as productive today. We're going to talk about the ADA. And the first thing I have to tell you is that the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, is not a law about service dogs. It's not a law about wheelchairs. It's not a law about hearing aids, prosthetics, or any of those things. The Americans with Disabilities Act is a civil rights law designed to protect the right of disabled people to equal access everywhere they go. Now, in that law, it includes provisions for wheelchair ramps, TTY machines, braille on signs and menus, and protects the disabled person's right to use a service dog in most places that the general public can go. There are a few exceptions. You can't go into a kitchen where people are preparing food with your service dog. You can't go into a sterile operating theater with your service dog. There are some common sense exceptions. But as far as the Americans with Disabilities Act goes, that protection is the same protection that is guaranteed to any disabled person. The ADA is not a law about service dogs. The ADA is a law about equal access for disabled people. Now, given that understanding, and that is the bottom rung, that is the very minimal understanding that you need to understand about the ADA, is it's not about service dogs. It's about disability and equal access as anybody else, as any able person, okay? Given that, when you then start to limit those accesses, you are infringing upon that right, and you are infringing on that equality. Specifically, I'm talking here about requiring some kind of a registration or certification system for service dogs. Under American law in the United States, the way the ADA is written, if you begin to require that, you are then relegating one class of disabled person to second-class citizen. Have to carry around certifications or ID cards, and they have to prove that their service dog is legitimate. They have to prove it to some government agency in order to get that card, okay? No other disabled person has to do that. As a matter of fact, when it comes to absolute equality, service dog handlers are already unequal because we are the only disabled people for whom the law actually prescribes that questions be asked as they enter an establishment. We're the only ones. Nobody asks, is that a real wheelchair needed for a disability? How do you use your wheelchair? Are those real hearing aids required for a disability? How do you use your hearing aids? Okay. However, it is legal for the business gatekeepers, business management, staff on a business to ask two questions, and two questions only. Is that a service dog required to assist with a disability? And what tasks or work is it trained to perform? That's it. They can't ask you what your disability is. They can't ask you for a prescription. They cannot ask you for certification or registration. In fact, the ADA goes so far as to explain that there is no legitimate certification or registration of service dogs in the United States, and the Department of Justice does not recognize any such document. It's right there in black and white. And people say, well, there's all these fake dogs. There's these fake dogs. First of all, the United States does not have a fake service dog problem because you're blaming the dog, and the dog is not at fault. The United States has an entitlement problem, and people see legitimate disabled people with service dogs and think, well, I want to take my dog everywhere. How can they do that? And they figured out, well, I can just claim it's a service dog, and I can get this great registration. I can go online and find this great registration, and that means everybody has to let me in. No, it does not. There are some requirements in order to have a service dog in the United States. First of all, you have to be disabled. Not only do you have to be disabled, but the dog has to be able to perform tasks or work to assist you directly with your disability. Okay, number one, if you're not disabled, it doesn't matter how well trained the dog is or what it does, it's not a service dog. You are not protected by the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's right there in the name of the law. The Americans with Disabilities Act. Okay? And, additionally, look, there are hearing alert dogs, and they're amazing. Okay? They alert their handlers who are partially or completely deaf to the approach of somebody or somebody trying to address them. So they get their attention, so that person will turn their attention to whatever the dog is alerting towards, right? And then they can communicate or understand or see that there's something coming or something like that, okay? However, if you're deaf, but all your dog does is retrieve things for you, but you don't have a mobility issue, it doesn't qualify as a service dog because retrieving random things for you, go get me the remote, go get me my keys, things like that, isn't directly related to your disability. Again, it doesn't matter how well the dog is trained. If you're not disabled, or if the dog isn't trained to assist with your disability, you're not protected under the ADA to use that dog in public places. Okay? The dog must be trained to assist you with your disability. We'll get into PTSD service dogs shortly. Now, there's so much confusion out there, and there are parties active in the United States, and there are people active in the United States who want to create a registry. The best illustration I have for the reasons why a registry would do nothing but put the burden on disabled people who are already burdened because they're disabled. And they're disabled to the point where they need something or someone to assist them in order to go out and enjoy a more normal life. In our case, as service dog handlers, that's a service dog, okay? If you start to take away that right or limit it by requiring registration, requiring certification, forcing you to go to a government office and prove that your dog can perform its tasks, okay, if you start doing that, what you're doing is infringing upon that right. Now, a direct parallel, different subject, different items, different objects, obviously, okay? But a direct parallel is the Second Amendment, okay? Under the Second Amendment of the Constitution, when you read it the way it was written and intended, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That language is very clear. However, over the years, we have had some compromise, and some laws have been written. The National Firearms Act, the Gun Control Act. Different states are passing all these laws, removing rights, infringing upon the right. Now, according to the logic of gun control, by removing access to guns, less gun violence will occur. When you sit down and look at the CDC's survey on gun violence, the FBI's studies on gun violence, overall, in general, in the United States, gun violence has decreased, okay? And in places where gun control laws are extremely strict, gun violence has increased. Do you know why? Because criminals don't follow the law. That's the definition of a criminal. So let's do the same thing. Let's infringe on disabled people's right to use a service dog. Well, who's causing the problem with untrained dogs in public places? Is it disabled people or is it entitled people who understand enough about the law to know that if they bluster and make enough noise and they threaten to sue, they can take their untrained dog with them everywhere? It's my service dog and I'm going to sue you if you kick me out. And Fifi the Wonder Poodle's over there peeing on the bread display. Okay. That's not a trained dog, and it doesn't fulfill the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act in regards to a service dog. And businesses have the right, spelled out in the law, to request that that animal be removed. They cannot deny service to the handler because the person is who is being protected by the law. But they can ask that the out-of-control animal that is clearly untrained be removed. It's in the law. This goes for actual disabled people who are legitimate service dog handlers who have trained service dogs. Look, shit happens. Dogs have bad days because they are living beings. Here's another aspect of the whole argument. Dogs are living beings. However, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, as defined, a service dog is technically, in a court of law, durable medical equipment, the same status as a cane, a wheelchair, hearing aids, a TTY machine, you name it. You name an assistive device, a prosthetic, okay? Exact same legal status. If it comes to a court of law and a business is refusing a disabled handler access with their service dog, the comparison is directly made. Would you tell a wheelchair user they could not come into your establishment? Well, no, I would never. It is legally identical to telling a service dog handler that they cannot come into your establishment. Okay? That does not mean that the ADA does not understand that service dogs are still dogs. Which is why in the ADA, when it describes a service dog, it says the service dog must be under the handler's control at all times, or if the dog is not under control, the handler must be taking immediate, effective steps to regain control. That's a simple sentence. It's short. Dog has to be under control. If it's not under control, you have to regain control. But that completely acknowledges that dogs are living beings and they can have bad days and things can distract them and things can go wrong. And it allows the disabled handler the opportunity to fix the situation. If you're a legitimate handler and you understand that you rely on your dog day in and day out and you need that dog there. I don't take my service dog with me to the grocery store because it's fun. It's not fun. The way people talk about me behind my back, oh my God, look at that dog. The constant barrage of comments and intrusion into my day is not fun. It's obnoxious. Okay? That's not why he's there. He's not there to entertain other people. He's there to keep me from punching other people. Okay? He's there to keep me focused on him instead of the things that would stress me and prevented me from being able to go to the grocery store before I trained him. Okay? It's not about, well, I just want to take my dog everywhere. I would give anything in the world for Skeeter to be my pet. I really would. He's more than earned it. He deserves it. But he is not a pet. He is required. I need him or I am unable to complete these simple tasks. I can't shop without my dog. I end up dropping everything, leaving my cart, and running from the store. I can't handle it because of this thing going on in my brain caused by trauma that has changed the way my brain works. Okay, look, this is an illustration I've used before and I'm going to use it again. When you lose your leg, They give you a prosthetic. You're, say, at the knee. So you're disconnected from the knee to the ground. There's nothing there. Okay. So they build you something that fills that gap between your knee and the ground. When you have post-traumatic stress, your brain locks itself into fight or flight, hypervigilance, anxiety, depression, panic. Okay. And you can't, it doesn't go away. You can't turn it off. A PTSD service dog, through the interaction between you and the dog and the bond that you form when you train the dog, becomes the prosthetic device that fits into those puzzle pieces that short-circuited with the trauma and created what we know as post-traumatic stress. They call it a disorder. I don't feel it's a disorder. If you have post-traumatic stress, it's because you survived. It is a survival mechanism. It is the brain's natural response to traumatic incidents, and it is how you live through it. I don't call that a disorder. It's the way the brain is built to function when you're in extremis, okay? And I don't suffer from PTSD. I am a PTSD survivor, a post-traumatic stress survivor, okay? I survived. I changed. And because I changed, it's difficult for me to relate with the world around me. That's why I trained my dog, and he fills those gaps. He acts as a prosthetic, a psychological prosthetic, a mental prosthetic, whatever you want to call it, but he fills those gaps. He watches my six, so I don't have to walk through the store going like this. He'll let me know if something's coming up on me. He will alert me. He also alerts me when my stress levels are getting high and I'm getting to that point where when one more person says something stupid, fight or flight kicks in. PTS survivors are constantly on that level, right on that edge, right on that knife's edge, where one thing happens and we will go right into emergency response mode, either ready to kill or ready to run. We can't turn that off. And there's no drug that turns it off. They dull it and turn us into zombies, but they don't turn it off. Do you know what fills that gap and gives us that early warning system, that lookout, that scout? A PTSD service dog. It's a prosthetic. It fills the gap. And anger, yeah, anger and rage, absolutely. Anger and rage. Before I started training Skeeter, let me tell you, I was a rage monster. I was out of control, the littlest thing. And I started recognizing that every time I raised my voice, it scared my puppy. And by this point, he and I had already bonded. I mean, this was my dog, and to the degree that he wouldn't listen to anybody else in the house but me, which is still the case a lot of the time. He doesn't listen to anybody but me, and that's good. He's not supposed to. He's my dog. But I started recognizing, wait a minute, he's scared. And the last thing I wanted to do is scare that precious little puppy. He wasn't that little. He was already about 20 pounds. Okay. The last thing I wanted to do was scare that puppy. So I learned how to deal with things by not raising my voice. He taught me that, because in order to create that bond and to work with him, I had to lower my voice. And it's taken years of practice and years of him looking at me and going, dude, chill. And he does. He has a dude chill look, and it works. And I go, oh, sorry. And I stop and do a self-assessment. My brain doesn't do that. My brain doesn't stop me and say, look, you got to think about what's going on, right? Brain doesn't do that. PTS disabled that ability to check myself. My dog fills in, okay? Remember what I said about the ADA and about the requirement of a service dog? It has to perform worker tasks that assist you with your disability. I can't check myself and go, wait a minute, where's my head at? What's going on? My dog checks me. My dog alerts me, hey, your adrenaline's kicking up. You're starting to get angry. I'm starting to pick up those hormones off you. I can smell it. And they can trust me. He lets me know 5 minutes before I'm ready to pop, hey, you're getting spun up. And he alerts me. And he keeps alerting me until I listen to him and I refocus on him instead of whatever it is that's getting me there. The only reason I can make it through a grocery shopping trip at Walmart is because every time it starts to, all that noise and the loudness and the people, and it just starts to really weigh, and I start spinning up as he starts alerting me. And he draws my focus away from the 360 craziness that's going on back down to the dude at my side who's going, hey, it's cool. You're safe. I'll let you know if you're not. That's why I'm here. That's what you taught me to do. Okay. I taught him how to tell me it's cool. You're okay. He's a battle buddy. He's right there by my side. He's just like your battle buddy out in the service. If you were in the service, he's like the guy who was right by your side, watching your six. That's what the service dog does. You can't do it for yourself. It doesn't work that way anymore inside your head. Okay. So you use a service dog. But that takes commitment. That takes training. And back to the Americans with Disabilities Act, that takes an understanding of what the law means. Because with the right, the same as owning a gun, with the right to use a service dog to assist you with your disability comes the responsibility of doing so in an appropriate manner. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires the dog is under the handler's control at all times. If the dog is not under the handler's control, the handler must be taking immediate, effective action to regain control. How do you keep control of your dog at all times, everywhere you go? There's only one way I know of, and that's to train your dog. Train your dog. You can't control the dog if you don't train the dog. That is implicit in the law. If the dog is untrained, it's uncontrollable. Nobody in the world can refute that. Nobody in the world can refute that. There are dogs who are so cool and so chill and so mellow that you really don't have to do much. There's not a whole lot of training involved because the dog gets it. But at the end of the day, when somebody throws a slice of cheese on the floor in front of your dog, if your dog does not know the command, leave it, because you never trained it, your dog's going to go after the slice of cheese. That's not necessarily out of control, but it's also not acceptable. Okay? Not acceptable for a service dog. I can't tell you how many restaurants Skeeter has been in and never once tried to eat food off the floor of the table. Do you know why? Because, man, he's terrible at home. If it's unsupervised and he's not told to leave it, it's gone. Because he's a dog. If I drop a piece of cheese on the floor, it's gone. Because he's a dog. But if we're in a restaurant and he knows he's working and I drop a piece of cheese on the floor, he doesn't move. Why? Because I trained him. You can't say, I'm disabled, slap a vest on your dog, and take it everywhere, and it's a freaking tornado. You can't do that. But you also can't blame the dog. Okay? It's not a fake service dog. The person who takes the dog, knowing it's not trained, understanding that they're abusing the law, that's the problem. There's Nevermore. Oh, and Big Skeet. Hey, come say hi. Come say hi. Hi, baby boy. This is my best friend. This is my brother. Uh-oh, she's got the whoopee.
She feels like crap.
It's real. Nevermore's not feeling real well, but she's joining us. Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Now, look, I can set a cheeseburger down right in front of him on the floor and tell him to leave it. If I tell him to leave it, and he won't come near it because he's trained. If I don't tell him to leave it, it disappears immediately because he's a dog.
He's also a sandwich snatcher.
Yeah, and he loves sandwiches. Yeah. Let's get Nevermore in a shot. Thank you for joining us. I know you're not feeling well, sweetheart.
Yeah, that's where he's been with me.
Yep, he's been taking care of mommy. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. He's got a big day ahead of him tomorrow. Okay, so again, though, just like with owning a gun, when you make the commitment to purchase a firearm, you're also accepting the responsibility to use it in appropriate manners. Okay. If you don't accept that responsibility and you decide to use it in inappropriate manners, you perform criminal acts.
Look, where's that?
Where's Mama Zowie?
He's like, nope, not a
He's not.
monkey.
He's not performing right now. Okay.
Not
Same
circus
thing.
monkey.
Same thing with service dogs. Look, you're disabled. You have a dog. You train the dog to assist you, but you decide to teach it to bite people on command. That does not fall under the acceptable activity for a service dog under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Department of Justice has gone into that in depth about protection training not being acceptable. Once you allow that dog to become out of control and bite somebody, you are no longer protected for handling that dog under the Americans with Disabilities Act. You are no longer protected to have it there. Now, again, another part of the thing about out of control is barking. Barking is a big issue, okay? And what the Americans with Disabilities Act says is one bark is acceptable. Say, for instance, for some reason, I'm just not getting it. Hi, buddy. I'm not getting it. He's trying to alert me, and I'm not listening, and I'm not listening, and I'm not listening. And he finally gets frustrated and gives me a bark. It snaps my attention right to him. What's the matter? What's going on, buddy? Right? Okay? That's acceptable under the ADA. Repeated disruptive barking is not. Now, if you're in a store and a service dog comes running up to you barking and there's no handler attached to it, common sense says you better follow the dog and see where the handler is, because 9 times out of 10, they're down. Okay?
DOJ to protective training link.
Sam Redmond will find it. I don't have it at hand right this minute, but there is an extensive piece on somewhere on the DOJ website, and I'll have to do some digging. I'm trying to remember who it was who knows exactly where the link is.
I wish they'd see him trying to work.
Mama doesn't feel good, so Skeeter thinks, that of course, his loves help, and they do. Deep pressure therapy is a miraculous thing. Okay, so repeated disruptive barking is not acceptable. So when you go into the grocery store with your dog and Fifi the Wonder Poodle goes berserk and your dog lets out one bark, hey, stop that. Dad, get away from there, and alerts you. It's okay for your service dog to give out one bark and alert you. Fifi the Wonder Poodle going berserk, well, one, isn't a trained service dog, and two, the store is well within their rights to request that dog be removed. They cannot deny service to the person unless and until that person becomes belligerent and starts showing their ass, in which case it has nothing to do with the dog anymore and everything to do with their behavior. Okay? But they can request that the dog be removed. Okay. Nationally, there is not a service dog registry. It is not recognized or required by law. Some states do have a voluntary registry. Yep, you're right. John says Skeeter goes to who needs it more, and that's absolutely correct. John and Skeeter at Ajax and I were out, and John was having a rough time, and I was cool, and Skeeter went, Dad, and he looked at me, and I said, go for it. And he went over and did everything but crawl into John's lap.
Well, he's also kind of irked right now because
he didn't get any sandwich.
No.
Oh, you have his whoopee.
My whoopee.
Mama has the whoopee. It's her whoopee, but he's claimed it. Okay, so you have the right to handle a dog, but you also, when you choose to exercise that right, have the responsibility to do so appropriately. Okay. And there's a bunch of questions. Oh, back to the question about the registry in Ohio. Look, some states have voluntary registries. I refuse. My state, North Carolina, has a voluntary registry. I refuse to use it. Do you know why? It's not recognized or required by law. And every time, if I'm challenged and I whip out my registration card, what does it teach the person who I show it to? That it's required. So when the next handler comes in who's traveling from out of state, wouldn't have a North Carolina registry card anyway because they're from Florida, comes in and they refuse them service because the last guy who had a service dog had a registration card from North Carolina. They've just discriminated against that person illegally because I went in there and showed them my registration card and taught them that that was required. I do not recommend using state registries. I really don't. It's not required by law. It is not required by law. Now, Zach, can restaurants segregate you from general seating? No, they cannot. That is illegal.
We actually had an issue in Colorado. We were getting a hotel and the lady goes, well, we have one certain room for people with their service dogs. I'm like, no, you give us the room you originally planned on it. And she goes, no, we're going to put you in a separate room because of dog hair. And we're like, it might be in your best interest to just go ahead and put us in the original room because if not, that's discrimination. And he actually, bless his heart, he actually whipped the ADA out on her. And next thing I know, the sign was taken down and all that fun stuff. So no, they can't do that.
I was polite. I didn't fight with her. I just explained the law and explained that you cannot isolate service dog handlers. That is illegal. Do you make wheelchair users only sit in one spot? Do deaf people have to sit on the third row on the left? That's discrimination. It is illegal. Look, where did the ADA come from? The civil rights movement. The people who were beaten, arrested, shot,
Let's talk about
lynched,
that for a minute.
burned in order to get equal rights because of the color of their skin, built the foundation for equal rights for disabled people.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I think people that push for registrations, and I know you've probably already been talking about that, but I was in the bathroom dying. Why in this world would you want to undo history and belittle people like Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, knowing that they literally put down their lives to make sure that they had equal treatment? We're disabled. We're not any different other than there's a glitch or something's broken or something's not right.
Or something's missing.
Or something's missing. Why in the world would you want to, because it's easy, lay down and make those people die for nothing?
Why would you surrender those rights?
I know people say, yeah, but that was about the color of your skin. It's still about a human being being treated on the same level as another human being. So every time I see somebody go, well, it'll just be easier if we had IDs or if we could do this or that. Well, it'd be easier to go to the back of the bus too, but why in the hell should anybody had back then do that? People stood their ground for what was right, and most people died from it. I just don't understand why in this generation it's so much easier to roll over and let it happen versus stand up for your civil rights.
People actually died for civil rights. The Americans with Disabilities Act is a civil rights law. I don't know necessarily that disabled people died for the ADA. It was passed in 1990, and we were for the most part past that kind of behavior as in regards to cross burnings on lawns and things like that. For the most part, okay, but nobody. But the people who laid the groundworks, they died. They were killed. They were shot. No, Jessica, no state. First of all, rental is covered under the Fair Housing Act. Somebody dropped the link to the Fair Housing Act ruling on service animals into the comments, please. The Fair Housing Act, however, still does not require registration. It is not required. To fall under the Fair Housing Act, a renter has to rent 5 or more units. Okay, if they rent 5 or more units or use a rental management company, they have to follow the law, and that is a violation of the law. The question about muzzles. What equipment you choose to use on your service dog is your business. There's nothing that says they can't wear muzzles. There's nothing that says they have to wear muzzles. I use a 100-pound Alaskan Malamute that most people mistake for a wolf. I've never put a muzzle on him in his life because he won't bite. He's trained. If muzzles make the people around you feel more comfortable, great. But does that interfere with your dog's ability to perform its tasks? You know?
Now, I'm not going to muzzle mine just because of its breed. My
No.
service dog in training is a pit bull with boxer mixed in, but she looks like a pit bull. There's not going to be any, oh, that's not really a pit with me because she looks like a pit bull. I'm not muzzling her just to make the rest of the community feel safe. I'm sorry, but she's not going to hurt you. She's not going to bite you. And if she was, she wouldn't be there. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to make her wear a muzzle just because it makes everybody else
Just
feel
because
better.
people are scared of her. Look, last week on the live, there was a lady who was offended because of my physical, the way I was holding my body. I'm sorry that I was in pain. I'm still in pain. So I was trying to hold my injured arm. That doesn't change the information I'm delivering. If I'm big and scary and you don't want to look at me, listen. You know, it's not I can't control your feelings. You can't control other people's fear. There are people I've dealt with here in North Carolina in medical settings. I've dealt with people who were terrified of Skeeter, and Skeeter's like, whatever, and ignores them, completely ignores them. When I went to the emergency room the morning after I had my injury, the charge nurse or whatever she was at the VA emergency room was absolutely terrified of him. But she maintained her professionalism, and Skeeter didn't give her any mind. He paid her no mind. Okay? And look, if the general public's going to run screaming because you have a Rottweiler, bye. That's on you, not me, the handler. That's your problem. You don't owe the general public anything but making sure your service dog is behaving in public. That's what you owe them. Nothing else.
So we got a comment on one of actually it was a meme saying, how do you interact with a service dog? You don't. And we had somebody also handicapped that went, but I like to say they're beautiful. Look, I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm just going to be blunt. I live with the fur ball. I know what he looks like. I don't need you to tell me 6,000 times while I'm going through Walmart what a pretty dog I have, because he's not a seeing eye dog and I'm not blind. I don't need you to stop me. The first one or two, it's like, yeah, okay, thank you, whatever. By the last one, I literally turn around and go, I know, I live with him, thank you. I don't care who you are, and if you think it's cute or you're being polite, I just want to go from one end of the store to the other end of the store, and everybody act like it's nothing and that he's not there. People, I mean, I swear, I know dogs are pretty damn common, and it's like, a dog, and I turn around and I'm always like, where? I'm a smart ass about it. I can't help it because after, 37 million times, it's like, I just wanted some milk. Milk's on the other end of the store. I got to go through all you people. I'm sorry, but it just don't act like you know them. Unless you do know them and don't ignore your friends or whatever.
Yeah.
And like at the restaurant, when we go to a restaurant, we try to be courteous. We don't ask to be segregated, nor do they try to segregate us. But we will ask for a spot because now I still prefer corners. So I got to see the door. No matter what, I'm still going to be watching the door. So we always try to take a corner where he's got room because he cannot tuck. I mean.
Well, and I didn't train him to tuck. One of his tasks is to block behind me because before I had him, it was in a loud, noisy restaurant. A waitress came up and put her hand on my shoulder. And I didn't hear her, didn't know she was coming. She put her hand on my shoulder and scared the living daylights out of me. And I rose up and about punched her. People can't walk up on me with my hearing loss from the Navy. Thank you. And in a crowded situation, sneak up on me and put their hand on my shoulder without startling me. So I taught him to post up behind me, to block, to create a physical barrier. Do you know how many weight persons step over a 100-pound dog to get to me to put their hand on my shoulder in the last 6.5, almost 7 years? 0. I cannot perform that task by myself. My service dog does it for me, and it saved me from going to jail for punching some poor unknowing waiter or waitress who didn't know that I have PTSD, and I was sitting in a room with my back to it, and my hypervigilance was already up there, and put their hand on my shoulder to get my attention because it's noisy. Simple thing. My brain doesn't do anymore, so my dog does it for me.
But yeah, we will ask to be out of the way. And that's not really because we have the service dog. I mean, we try to keep into account where he'll be comfortable so that I would hate for some poor waiter to do his job and pay attention that Skeeter's not there and then suddenly realize Skeeter's there and dump a whole tray. Because, you know, there are people that are terrified of dogs, and I get that. We had a kid when we went out to eat before I wanted
he
to
was so awesome.
That customer. But you could tell, when he turned the corner and saw Skeeter, he was like, "Ooh," and he swallowed it real quick, and he was like, still going to do my job, still going to do my job. He almost screamed and ran.
Yeah.
But
this young man was great. That was at the buffet up in Greensboro. He was absolutely terrified of Skeeter, but he did his job. He served us, and he got a $20 tip, and we made sure to let the manager know that he was extremely professional.
I slipped him a note.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I tend to read people because, watch everything. But I don't know if it was he was having a bad shit day or if he was just that terrified of Skeeter. But when he got the note and he come out of the back, his face changed so huge that he might have me in tears.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, like, we were at O'Charlie's, and that waiter, oh, my gosh. Let me tell y'all this story. It's story time.
Now, see, she doesn't have the hearing loss as bad as I do, so she could hear what was going on. I'll just let you know right now, she heard things I did not hear, or I probably would have been much more upset, but I was pretty pissed anyway. Go ahead, babe.
Oh, God. So, we sit beside this little couple, whatever, minding our own business. Skeeter is flopped out, service rug, doesn't move.
Right behind me, doing his thing.
They put us between two tables, and there was nobody at the table behind us. He had plenty of room, and we're trying to have a normal meal. Well, they wait for our waiter, and I hear them telling him, "Can you not remove them or move them?" And he's like, "No, they're allowed to be in here with their service dog." Well, I don't like it. And then she starts telling every person that calls or sees how bad that dog terrified her husband. We're sitting right there. Like, I can hear you. And she just starts getting louder, and she's like, I just don't understand why somebody has to bring their pet out in public. And I turned around and I said, well, I don't understand why I can't have my damn dinner without you being loud as crap up in here. And there were veteran words in there that I'm editing. But that silenced it. As soon as I started, it silenced it. She's not as quiet as she thought she was. And so we get through the meal, and she realizes she's made a terrible mistake. We're both pissed. So she turns and starts asking us questions, and we're like...
I was as polite as I could be, but I did end up telling them that I fed Skeeter small children.
You sit there, and the stuff that you hear that people think disabled automatically means you're deaf.
Mm-hmm.
So they will say some horrendous stuff thinking you didn't hear it.
Yeah.
And 95% of the time, I'm just like, you're an uneducated baboon. I'm just going to keep walking. But every once in a while, I'll reach my limits, and I'll turn around and go, look, you dumb. Here's what I think of you. And here's what I think of what you're saying. And, I mean, I had a confrontation in the damn pet aisle with a dog because she was allergic to dogs. And I told her where she could...
What are you doing in the dog food aisle if you're allergic to dogs, lady?
I literally told her where she could stick some Benadryl. And it wasn't to take orally.
Another situation. I had something happen to me. I already told the PTSDog squad about this. I had something happen to me today that has never happened in my life. If you're in a PTSDog group, you will know it was on the main page. You will know that when I went to my pre-op appointment on Tuesday, some woman in the treatment room opposite me, while I was getting settled in my treatment room in a medical facility, picked up her camera, went, Oh my God, look at that husky, pointing it just directly at me and Skeeter. So there's no way I wasn't in the picture, and started taking pictures. Now,
I wasn't there, thank goodness. I would
goodness
have
she
lost
wasn't.
it.
I just simply said, "Excuse me, please stop taking pictures of my service dog without my permission." The nurse whipped around and was like, "Is she what?" Slammed the door, slammed the curtain. What I didn't know, but I found out today. First of all, there were some persons who decided to jump on my case. Well, that's their First Amendment right.
Wrong.
Except in places where you have a reasonable expectation of privacy, such as medical treatment rooms and facilities. It is still against federal law and state law.
You cannot film inside an abortion clinic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a public place. No. I love how people throw federal laws at me, and all they do is remind me of that stupid SpongeBob meme. Beneath the federal blade, federal law says. Guess what? Federal law says a lot of things when you pick and choose which excerpts you're going to use as your evidence. Your Google foo as a lawyer kind of sucks. If you read through the whole thing, which is probably about 3 days of reading, and read all the little what ifs or exemptions and whatever, you'll learn that not everything that you think is your amendment right is not even remotely close to what you think.
Under federal law, you do have a reasonable expectation of privacy in a medical treatment environment. If I had done the same thing to her, she would have gone berserk. The reason I know this is because, like I said, something that has never happened before, ever happened today. The patient advocate's office from the facility called me and apologized profusely for the woman, this stranger, taking pictures of me in their facility. And I'm like, why are you apologizing? You didn't do anything wrong. Your nurse was awesome. She closed the door and closed the privacy curtain immediately. I'm not upset with your facility. You guys didn't do anything wrong. You were all awesome. You were great. Well, we feel responsible for this, and we're very, very sorry. And she said the other nurse, not my nurse, but another nurse, because my nurse went and talked to that lady's nurse, went in and talked to her and said, you can't do that here, that you're violating his privacy. You're also violating the HIPAA law by doing so. And you could get into a lot of trouble for that. And the lady explained, I'm so sorry. I never even thought about that. I just really interested in service dogs, and I'm interested in getting one day. That's great. But here's the problem with the general public.
You mean other than they're entitled?
Most of the time, if you take 3 seconds to ask me a question, I'll be more than happy to sit down and explain things to you. That's what I do. I wrote a freaking book. I run this page to inform and educate people. Most of the time, unless, I'm bleeding out, I'm going to stop and talk to you most of the time. Remember, I am disabled. I do have post-traumatic stress, and there are days when I can't people. But most of the time, if I'm there, I'm able, because I've got Big Stinky with me, I'm able to handle it, and I will do my best to educate, or at least say,
ow.
Like I had a woman ask if she could take Skeeter's picture in the store, and I just finished checking out. My cart was loaded and I was leaving. I said, no, please don't. But here, and I handed her the business card, but it has the Facebook page on it. And I said, check out our Facebook page. There's thousands of them. Okay. Most of the time, if you do me the politeness, the very small politeness of asking a question, I'll answer. And if I don't be offended. The dog is there because I have a disability. My disability isn't visible. You don't know what that disability is, nor is it your business. I share it here. I freaking wear my heart on my sleeve here because I want to help other people who have a similar disability. Okay? People have got to, whatever happened to being respectful of others and common sense?
Well, it's also what they wanted to start arguing, and I'm going to use something that we don't normally use on PTSDog page. Okay, so his argument is federal law trumps state law, okay? And I totally get what he's saying, but you have to have some sort of state laws in place, because look at Colorado, who has legalized marijuana. Federally, marijuana is illegal. So when you use that argument that, well, federal law says, but I'm telling you that my state law says that this is a two-party state for videoing, a one-party state for recording. So if you are voice recording, only one person has to know, which means the person holding it, doing the recording, is giving consent. But on video, you have to have two-party consent, which means when you flip the camera around on me and the first words out of my mouth is, I do not consent, and you do not stop, you're therefore breaking the law. I use this at work all the time when these jerkwads try to video record. I literally get on camera and go, I do not consent. And as soon as my face pops on that camera and I yell those words, do not consent, if they post it, one, can charge them. Two, any Facebook, YouTube, any place that they post that video, when the words I do not consent come out, and I don't just say it once so they have to cut it out. I'm literally like a little road runner going by. I'm dealing with some kind of emergency and I'm like, no, I do not consent. And they don't understand. Federal laws are great. Okay, and they do travel to where, like, if you want to go from Colorado to, say, North Carolina, marijuana is not legal in North Carolina. So you can't travel like that because federally it's illegal and you're crossing state boundaries. But when your state has laws, I want to see the person that wants to take their time. If I charge somebody for invasion of privacy on me, take it all the way to federal court, because I'm going to let you waste your dime and I'm going to let you waste your time, because I'm still going to win because it's state law and I didn't consent. So when you people, not you people, because you people aren't the people, or you wouldn't still be here. But when people sit there and argue, I hate a Google lawyer. I'm not trying to be ugly, but if you're gonna Google it, don't take 2 seconds. He goes, a little bit of research go you a long way, and a little bit of extra reading would have went you a little bit under the next 3 paragraphs where it says, in a environment where reasonable privacy is expected on the federal limit. That's why you no longer see these people going in and abortion shaming. We're not going to get on the topic of abortion, but they used to go into these clinics and post these young girls and show pictures of these young girls and shame them. You can't do that. It's against the privacy law federally. Okay? But like I said, I don't like people who just assume that they know everything. Look, I live in the state. I know most of the state laws. Try not to break any of them. But if you record me in a hospital, I'm probably going to break one of them and probably get felony assault. That's all I'm going to say, because I'm going to take your phone and I'm probably going to throw it upside your head.
Yeah. Patrick is exactly right. Depending on the law, when it comes to protecting privacy, federal law leans to, if you end up in court, the more protective of your privacy. When it comes to equal access, federal law leans more to the...
1 second. Thank you, Hoslaw. I almost call you Coleslaw.
When it comes to things like access, federal law is going to be more lenient. Specifically, and because we're talking about the ADA, we're talking about service dogs in the ADA. Specifically, the ADA actually states states can make their laws more lenient, but cannot be more restrictive than the ADA. For example, federally, it is legal for Canis lupus familiaris linnaeus domesticated dogs to be service dogs. Nothing else. You can't have a hybrid wolf. Well, I'm getting there. Can't have a hybrid wolf. You can't have a hybrid coyote. That is legally, technically, and genetically a wild animal.
I just don't know.
That is a wild animal. Okay. The only other species protected as a service animal federally is a miniature horse. However, states can expand that protection to other species. In that state, that animal is protected. But as soon as you cross state lines, you are not federally protected. So in North Carolina, it's legal to have a service monkey. That's legal in North Carolina. That may not be legal in South Carolina or Virginia or Tennessee or Kentucky. So as soon as you cross that border, your service monkey becomes a pet.
And in some states, monkeys are illegal.
Yeah, and in some states, monkeys are illegal. Federally.
Wait, what? Let me read that up close because this one's mine.
That's a good question, Dawn. And this is a page about service dogs. I really don't know the answer to that.
So when a store says it's store policy to not allow service dogs, state and federal policy still trumps, correct?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
If that store says absolutely no dogs allowed, including service dogs, okay?
They're in violation
of both federal and state laws. I haven't seen a state that doesn't have some form of the public access in it. If there is one, it doesn't count. It would be unconstitutional, and it would go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Even if I have a small business, say we have just a little tiny ice cream shop out in the middle of BFE, as long as you can access it from and sit on the inside, I cannot say store policy says service dogs are not allowed. Now I can say service dogs are not allowed behind the counter because I'm handling food. I can say service dogs are not allowed to go into the walk-in cooler where there is open scoops. Say I'm lazy and I want you to scoop your own damn ice cream. I don't know how unsanitary that would be, but anyway, I can say stuff to prevent the dog from being where his fur and all of that can get into the general public's food. I don't mean in a restaurant, because if he's shedding so bad that his fur is going to fly into people's food, we're not going, because that's just wrong. That's gross.
And that's the next thing I want to touch on as far as access is, look.
So if you have any store that says that,
or a doctor's office,
that is
blatantly illegal. The
only place medically is in a sterilized area. We're not talking VA, okay? VA falls under completely different
we're not discussing the VA.
We're discussing civilian.
In general access to public Title II and Title III entities, which are public businesses and state and local government offices.
And another thing, we have seen 2 of these so far. 2 stories of your dog's not a robot. I got to tell y'all what this weirdo did. Y'all, you talk about when they have accidents or they misbehave and you correct it, but you're still so embarrassed. Let me tell you what this yo-yo on the floor did. We're in the doctor's office in this little tiny exam room. Okay, Skeeter is taking up half the exam room. This doctor comes in that Skeeter, for some reason, and Skeeter knows Skeeter can pick people. Well, this was suddenly one of his people, because I look over and Skeeter's got his nose up this man's pants leg. People, he got up and put his nose up this man's pants leg. I was mortified.
We removed Skeeter.
The man stood there. I don't know how long Skeeter's nose was there. That man stood there, bless his heart, and didn't flinch. And I'm like, I get a treat and move Skeeter. And 3 more attempts to be made of why this boy had to have his nose up this dog's pants leg is beyond me. I mean, I'm not talking like he was sniffing his ankle. I'm talking nose inside the pants leg. I was horrified. Shit happens, people. You are going to have days where your dog is just going to be, he's going to decide that day he's the shenanigans of all shenanigans, and he's going to pull something. Or the one example was the dog literally watered all of the Mother's Day cards. The dog had an infection. That person should not feel bad. But it happens. Every once in a while, Skeeter will do stuff just because Skeeter can. I mean, when you look over and there's this man just calmly talking and examining an arm
with ice cold nose,
with a 100-pound Malamute nose up his pants leg. I mean, let's talk about professional here. I couldn't have done it because I'd have been like, excuse me, sir, your dog's being a little odd over here. But no, this man doesn't do anything. He just keeps on working, and I'm standing there going, and I literally turned probably 50 Shades of Red, and I was like, Skeeter! And Skeeter didn't care. He did not care. The only thing that made him stop was a treat.
Chad, there is no certification. Doesn't exist. Please, once we finish up and the video is published, watch the first part of the video. There is no certification or registration for service dogs. We're going to get back to, again, handling.
If he has other questions, though,
Yeah.
we can message.
Please,
the main
absolutely
page.
message the page, Chad, but there is no certification. Anybody who tells you you have to have your dog certified is ignorant. They don't understand the law. You have to train your dog to assist you with your disability. Your dog has to be under your control at all times. If your dog is not under your control, you need to take immediate and effective action to regain control, and your dog must be housebroken. But going back to the ADA and going back to handling your service dog and going back to access. Look, there are places I will not take Skeeter. For example, only on very rare occasions when I'm just not having a good day, I will take Skeeter into the Dollar General. 90% of the time, I will not take him into the Dollar General. Not because I'm not allowed to, but because it's packed tiny. You can barely walk through the aisles on a good day. I don't know how they get away with it in the Dollar General, because you can't roll a lot of wheelchairs, especially powered wheelchairs, through there. I don't understand how they get away with it, except that all their shelves are movable. Okay. They are not necessarily very ADA compliant in most Dollar Generals. It's just too tight. And Skeeter has a big tail. That is like a baseball bat.
They are too tight, but they're technically wide enough by measurement, because, again, I hate to be the retail expert, but I am by measurement. They're technically wide enough for a wheelchair, but you'd think they'd give you a little elbow room on each side so it doesn't look like wheelchairs coming and everybody else has got to move. Normally, you would like to have, a lane of traffic where you can wheelchair this way, wheelchair that way.
You can't in Dollar General.
And in Dollar General, you can't.
And Skeeter knocks stuff off the shelves with his tail, so I don't take him in. Okay, that's being a responsible handler. Look, the other part of the equation, when you exercise your right to handle the service dog to assist with your disability, is that you accept the responsibility for doing so appropriately.
Let me go back up here. Let me see what.
What?
I gotta go see what we're going on about the Victoria's Secret.
No, I don't know.
Hold on.
Okay, but look, to exercise the right, you must accept the responsibility. Plain and simple. If you're going to go in with an entitled attitude of no matter what my dog does, it's a service dog and I can be here, you're going to get your ass thrown out. Not because of your dog, or maybe because of your dog's behavior, but mostly because you're being a jerk. Okay? Exercise the right responsibly. Train your dog. If your dog has an area where it's having difficulty, pull it from public access and work on that area. Train your dog.
Okay, I found it.
If you can't train your dog, if you don't have the ability to train your dog, get help.
Sam, so Jethro stuck his nose up a mannequin skirt at Victoria's Secret, or a human's skirt at Victoria's Secret?
Oh, no.
Inquiring minds have to know this.
Okay. And the ADA absolutely makes exception for the fact that service dogs are animals. But it does not change the fact that under the protection that they qualify, they are protected under the umbrella of durable medical equipment. Okay. But Sam trained his service dog to help him pick up chicks. Her to help
She
pick
can
up
pick up
chicks.
chicks if she wants to.
No, I'm just saying you train the dog to do. That's prowl maneuvers right there. We know what you're doing. Oh no.
Oh my gosh.
That's hilarious.
I would be less mortified if Skeeter had done it to a chick than some doctor's pants leg. I mean, there's this guy that is a therapist, and he's in khakis, and he's all professional, and he's explaining.
Physical therapist.
Physical therapist. Yeah. And he's explaining everything, and it's sad.
And here comes his nose. Whoop.
And I'm watching the doctor. He's watching the doctor, and Skeeter's laid down. And so I wasn't looking at him because you normally don't have to. And you look down, and he's laid backwards on his side, nose up this guy's pants leg, and you're like, what the hell are you doing, kid?
Face palm.
I mean, I literally, he was in so much pain, he didn't really say much, but I'm the one that was being the handler, and I was just like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I'm like leading him away, and he sneaks to do it over and over. I mean, my whole point of the conversation was sometimes it happens, and you guys break my heart by saying that you're humiliated. And I've even had one or two say they don't want to take their animal back in. Wrong answer. You correct it on the spot. You apologize if apologies need made.
Mm-hmm.
Clean up the mess. Mm-hmm. If you feel like you should pay for damages, pay for damages. Do whatever it is that you need to do. And at the end of the day, they get to see what a responsible service dog owner is, especially when you explain, I apologize. I don't know what's wrong. He must be having a bad day, but we'll leave immediately. Take him out, put him up, give him some AC, give him some music. I hear her. She's a pain in the butt because she can hear us.
I think she needs to go potty.
And just try again another day. I took Big Butt here to Hobby Lobby. I dearly love some Hobby Lobby. I cannot go to the glass section with Big Butt. I can only stay in the signs or in like the wide aisles because the glass section's like this wide.
Yep.
I can't go, and I can park him at the end and just drop the leash and leave him there, and he'd be fine. Except I get easily distracted, and y'all see me like waving at a fly and everything else. I get easily distracted and would forget I had him with me, and I would keep going the other way. And 3 laps in, I would walk back around, and Skeeter would still be sitting there, and I'd be like, well, whoops. Yeah, until that. I left him on the front porch. Forgot I had him outside with me, and he's like, where's Skeeter? And I'm like, oh, I was going back out, I promise. And Skeeter didn't go anywhere. I mean, it's just all these things that are embarrassing. And yeah, it's super embarrassing at the moment because, like I said, I about died right there in the doctor's office. I was like, oh.
Look, it all comes back to how you handle yourself when those issues happen. It really does. And that's the line where we can see the people who aren't really service dog handlers and the people who are. Because guess what? The actual legitimate service dog handlers are mortified. The people who are bringing Fifi the Wonder Poodle everywhere because they feel like they should be entitled to. When Fifi poops in the bread aisle, there's somebody here who can clean that up and raise their nose and stomp away. It happens
all the time. Right before I went out on leave, this lady brought in a puppy, and she dewormed it. So we all know what's happening next, right?
Mm.
All over the shopping cart, all over the floor. She literally picks up the dog, turns around, walks off. And I'm like, oh, she's going to take it outside. She'll be back. Stephanie. Veteran word never came back. Veteran word left us a mess. Veteran word.
And unfortunately, people like that give people like us, legitimate handlers, a bad name because everybody gravitates towards the bad.
Oh, no. But she was still sitting in her car, and I went, excuse me, you're not allowed to bring your dog back.
They make us look bad, and we're not the ones who are causing the problem. So we go back to the registration or certification question. Why make us bear the burden? And I'll go back to the parallel. I'll go back to the comparison to gun control. Who follows all the gun control laws? If their state demands registration, you register. You do the background check. You wait 3 days. Who follows gun control laws? Lawful gun owners. Who doesn't care what the law is? Criminals.
Yeah,
that's the very definition of the word criminal, a person who breaks the law.
Remember that 22 till 0 you were looking for?
Yeah. Oh, there it is. That is the same exact thing with service dog handlers. Who's causing the problem with untrained dogs in public places, creating nuisances, peeing and pooping in the aisles, barking, being distracted, all of that. Who causes these problems? Not legitimate service dog handlers. So why should we bear the burden and the cost and the time and the stress?
Somebody pick a subject while I go water the whiny butt.
Why should we take on the burden of proving our disability, proving our dog's training because their behavior while we're out working isn't good enough, apparently, when we're not the people causing the problem?
I like my Harley pants.
The only thing that a registry would do is limit the ability for disabled people to enjoy freedom, to enjoy the return to a more normal mode of life that their service dog gives them. Hi, baby. I know you're such a good boy. Yes, you are. Okay. And honestly, if you don't get it, think about where the ADA, where the law came from. Okay. This law does not grant us the ability to use a service dog. It is not a privilege. This law guarantees our right to use a service dog. There's a difference. There is a legal difference. There is a philosophical difference. There is a practical difference. And forcing us to license our right makes it no longer a right. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up on comments here. Okay. Yeah, okay. We're talking in the chat, in the comments, people are talking about flea and tick treatment. I use the one my vet sells me that's incredibly expensive, and I can't remember what it is because, of course, I'm going to block on the name of it. But it is very effective. It works for the big guy, and I don't worry about him getting fleas or ticks. Me, on the other hand, I sat down in we have a little porch swing under a little cover. It's not actually on the porch, but it's porch swing under a nice little roof out in the backyard. And I sat on it one morning and, Skeeter was doing his business. And when I got up, I found 2 ticks on my leg. So, yeah, I wish they had flea and tick collars for humans. Okay. Look, we've beat the horse about registration to death. If you're coming in at the end, please watch the whole video. Please read the chapter in the book. There's a whole chapter in my book, PTSDog, Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder and the Service Dog, that discusses, watch out, I have to use the mouse. Stop. I got to use the mouse, silly. I'll keep petting you. Yeah, sometimes he's awful demanding. Oh, that's not it. Oh, but that's a good thing. I'm going to put that in there, and then I'll copy you the book. That's the ADA information hotline. Listen, if you don't believe what we're telling you about what the ADA is and what it's all about, and you want to find out for sure, call that number. That's why it's there. I'm not telling you anything that isn't actually what the law is about and what it says. I've done the research. I took a lot of time to do the research. It took me 2 years to write the book, which you can find here. And every time I make a statement of fact about the law in the book, I include the footnote to the reference to the government website, .gov, that backs it up. You can get my book at booklocker.com. I just dropped the link in. You can also find it at amazon.com and barnesandnoble.com. Yeah, please, if you don't have the book, buy the book. Yeah, Cam, you've got to learn how to handle, we'll get to that in a second, Tammy. You've got to learn how to handle dealing with the general public and access. And the best advice I can give you is what I did. And I still do this to this day. I practice planned responses in the mirror. After I shower and when I'm shaving or brushing my teeth, I will practice planned responses to all the millions of comments I get, from, oh my God, your dog's so pretty, thank you, and keep moving on, to, well, you don't look disabled. Well, you don't look stupid, but here we are.
That's my line.
You don't have to be snarky. But what I'm saying is practice responses. Have friends help you practice responses. Train yourself how to deal with the people overreacting to the presence of your service dog. Okay, make it muscle memory. This is something we learned in the military. Practice, practice, practice until it's automatic response, muscle memory. Now, when people say, oh my God, your dog's so beautiful, I say, thank you, and I keep moving. I do not engage. Another possibility, I don't know what size your dog is. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But another thing, it's a suggestion that a friend of mine gave me, is wear dark sunglasses like you're blind. People don't mess with blind people with guide dogs. They don't stop them every 3 feet.
I've actually, I hate to say it, I pretended to be deaf. Ma'am, and I just kept walking. Mm-hmm. And it's sad that we have to resort to the label of only blind and deaf people can have a service dog. The thing is, the part I guess I don't understand and I'll never understand is dogs are everywhere. Dogs mm-hmm. are not rare. It's not like we have a service T-Rex. Mm-hmm. People walk in and they're like, oh my God, a dog. And you're like,
oh my God, an idiot. We don't say that out loud most of the time. Most of the time. Tammy, I'm going to be, well, that would make it even funnier, Cam, if you're in sunglasses like it's a seeing eye dog and it's a Chihuahua. Tammy, I'm going to be right back, and I will show you how I handle shedding with Skeeter.
I do have your butt is on the camera. Your butt was on the camera.
Camera booty.
Camera booty. I do have a couple of announcements. I have not got to all the interviews that I want to do for moderating, but we do have 3 that I introduced rather quickly to the world, but have not introduced to the page. We have Nightmare, we have Scorpio, and we have Apache that have joined us. They'll be doing some posts in the upcoming days, introducing themselves. One of them is a small breed owner, little guy, but little guy does a big job. I thought that would be useful, as I've seen a lot of, oh my God, is that a boot, or what is that little thing, and they can't possibly task, and that's the wrong answer. I haven't seen a breed yet that can't task unless they're just not trained. I mean, I'm not saying I've seen every breed, because I haven't, but everyone that has brought a different type of breed to my store that has an actual legitimate service dog, I've never had any reason to go, well, it's a Chihuahua, so it can't possibly do that job. Now, if you told me your Chihuahua was a mobility dog, I'd be like, you're going to break your Chihuahua. Because no offense, you put any weight on the little guy and his little legs is going to give out. But my biggest, well, hello, big furry, but what do you want? Oh, and let me tell y'all on this dude. His daddy had to go bye-bye from mommy to get some goodie powders, because as y'all can tell, my face is a little droopy. It's acting a little weird. And we go, do you want to go bye-bye in the TRUCK? I can't even say it out loud, because if I say it out loud, he can spell too. But he literally answered, I do, and ran. He talked. Like, I was like, well, I guess that answers that. Now you're about to see the Firmageddon.
Tammy, how I deal with the fur. This is called a Scotch type curling comb. This is actually a horse comb, but this is one of the most powerful tools I have ever seen for a double coated dog. Now, he's actually not blowing his coat or shedding very bad right now. He's doing pretty good.
We also have one of those yellow and black ones. I can't think of what it's called.
I'm going to say that next. That's out in the truck, so I couldn't get it. Well, he's not shedding very much right now, but see, it takes it off pretty quickly. The other tool I use is the King Comb, spelled with a K, KINGKOMB. That thing is amazing. It's got 3 very fine-toothed blades that retract into, it's a yellow and black cylinder that retract into the cylinder. Those do not take off his outer coat, his guard hairs. It gets the fluff underneath the second coat. Then on the backside, it's got rubber bumps. If he's having a problem shedding with his guard hairs, I retract the little teeth, turn it around, and the rubber bumps take off the guard hairs if they're shedding. So between the Scotch type curling comb, this I got at Tractor Supply from the horse section. I also call this the rake or the tooth comb. You can order them on Amazon. They're available at any horse supply store, any equestrian store. These are absolutely miraculous for a heavy double-coated dog. I can't, even my woolly Malamute, whose hair was about as long as my beard, this comb worked wonders for her.
We also, when he's being a turkey butt, he doesn't really want defloofed. We also have a glove. So he thinks he's getting petted, and that thing actually does pretty good about catching the all the now there are some times when he's shedding so bad we have to brush him before we get in the vehicle, let him shake, brush him before we go inside a store, and then halfway through he's like, we take him back out, let him water the lawn and shake one more time, just because it's like the Firmageddon. That crap's real, man.
It is Firmageddon. Jessica, a Furminator does not work well on northern breeds, on Alaskan Malamutes specifically. Literally, I owned a Furminator. Literally, I would put the brush on the dog, get this far, an inch, and I could not move the brush anymore. Furminator is terrible for a double-coated dog. That's why I went to this, because it doesn't snag. It just pulls out everything that's loose, and it's very gentle. Furminators snag and yank. I do not recommend a Furminator for a double-coated dog, at least not for a northern breed. I've been there, I've done it, and it was a